Good morning. You are watching the DMZ America podcast for Thursday, March 5th, 2026. Coming to you from the left, I'm editorial cartoonist Ted Rawl.
And coming to you from the right, I'm editorial cartoonist Scott Stantis. So, any news happening, Ted? Do you remember back in the 90s, the headline, The End of News?
Scott, keep talking because I'm getting an echo in my headphones and I've got to troubleshoot it.
Okay. No, back in the 90s, back when the Berlin Wall came down, back when democracy seemed to be, remember democracy? Seemed to be on the march across the globe. You had the student uprising going on in Tiananmen Square in China. You had the end of the Ceausescu regime in Romania. You had the fall of the Soviet Union, something resembling democracy all across the globe. And some news sites like the New York Times, Time Magazine, begged the question, is this the end of news? Is this because everything was just going so Jim dandy? What could possibly go wrong? Well, as humanity so often does, Ted, it said, looked at fate, handed it, looked at fate, looked at the situation, said, hold my beer. And the last few decades has...
And the world is burning, right? I mean, since we did the last podcast, the U.S. and Israel jointly invaded Iran. We've seen the war become a full-fledged Mideast war that has now spread even to places as far-flung as Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Qatar. The list goes on. The Iranians are retaliating as best they can. And to talk about this, we're joined by Nik Kowsar. He's our former colleague, and it's good to see you, Nik. Nik is an exiled Iranian cartoonist who now lives in the United States, who spent time in prison in Iran for his drawings. Let me just read the official, not obituary. Not the official obituary, the official bio here that I got off of Grok. So if it's wrong, I blame AI. Nik Kowsar is an award-winning Iranian-Canadian cartoonist, journalist, and water issues analyst. Born in Tehran in 1969, studied geology at the University of Tehran before launching his cartooning career in 1991 with the satirical magazine Gol Agha. He contributed to numerous Iranian newspapers like Hamshari and others, often facing censorship and prosecution for his sharp political satire. In 2000, he was imprisoned for a cartoon depicting a crocodile that critics linked to a hardline cleric, sparking death threats and forcing him to be exiled. In 2003, he fled to Canada, settling in Washington, D.C. He received the Cartoonist Rights Network International Award for Courage in Editorial Cartooning in 2001. And today he focuses on Iran's severe water crisis through journalism, a weekly video show, Abangan, websites like abanganiran.org, BBC Persian contributions, and TV analysis, while serving on the board of CRNI. I hope that's mostly correct.
Thank you.
Nik, it's good to see you. I'm sorry it's under such circumstances.
And I know you just flew back from Europe last night. So again, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. And good to see you guys.
Yeah, it's been too long.
It has been way too long. So Nik, why don't you sort of set the stage, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can get into the current situation. I mean, I'm curious. So tell us about, you wrote a great piece in your Substack yesterday where you talked about growing up during the Iran-Iraq War, as we call it here in the United States, from 1980 to 1986. And now you're watching your country being bombed again and the trauma that it left you with. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
I was just remembering, sorry, let me just cut off my good friends who are, I think they're not aware that I'm on your show. It's my bad. Sorry.
It's okay.
So, it was 1980, right after the Olympics, that we heard some alarming news that Iraq was going to attack Iran, but we had no idea why. And then just 2 years before the start of school year, Iraqi MiGs attacked the Mehrabad airport. You may have seen it in the movie Argo.
Mm-hmm.
So they attacked the airport, and we went to the roof. I went to the rooftop with my cousins to see what was happening. And that was the very first moments of an sort of 8-year war. We moved from Tehran to Shiraz in southern Iran. And during the 1980s, there was a lot of political clash between different factions, and Ayatollah Khomeini's government regime slaughtered many political activists in the name of acting on behalf of the enemy. And personally, I saw a couple of hangings near my middle school area, and I still remember them vividly. And I knew people who were arrested. A distant cousin was executed, and she was arrested, I think, when she was 14 and executed when she was 16 for having just a political pamphlet. So if you understand the situation that we went through, it tells you that the Iranian regime has no respect for human rights, for your own ideas. So it was a really hard situation. And when the war ended, we were hoping that there would be some sort of reform, some sort of changes that could move Iran towards a path of democracy. We were fooled that this would happen by different governments, by the Rafsanjani government, who wanted to get funds from European nations to rebuild the country after the war, and also by former President Khatami, who ran on the notion of democratic changes are needed for the future of this nation to hold the regime together. But at the end of the day, when I just criticized one Ayatollah with a simple crocodile, even I didn't draw the Ayatollah, I was about to get murdered. And I was lucky to be arrested and sent to the Evin prison, if you have heard of that notorious prison. Evin kept me alive. That's the joke about it.
How long were you there?
I was there for 6 days, but I was interrogated back and forth. I'm not sure if I was interrogated there after that, because when you're blindfolded, you don't know your location. And I didn't have a GPS on me at that time. So that's the harsh part. But when I left Iran, I fled in 2003, it was after receiving a serious death threat. That it was sort of like a fatwa that 3 ayatollahs, 3 religious jurists had made this decision that
these weren't random citizens.
No. And they had ordered my death and just sent me a note placed under my seat at a journalist gathering.
Oof.
And I first thought it was a prank, but then we found out, no, it was really serious. So with the help of Cartoonist Rights Network, I was able to leave Iran on time, because just 5 days after I left the country, police coming from the court went to my old address to arrest me. So by that means, I was very lucky.
In the nick of time, no pun intended.
No, can I ask a quick question on your first arrest? This sounds so rude, and I'm glad it didn't happen, but why did they let you live?
It was right before the parliamentary elections, and hundreds of reporters were in Tehran. And my arrest, the news of my arrest, became bigger than the election itself. And the National Security Council decided to kick me out of prison. I wasn't freed. I was kicked out of prison. That's the joke.
I'm just kind of thinking.
Well, if you have to be kicked out of somewhere.
Yeah, but I have to tell you, the food at Evin prison was excellent.
Really? I somehow find that surprising. Another thing I found surprising is, of course, when I knew this years ago when I read about your story, that there were satirical publications allowed to be published in Iran in the first place. I mean, so after the revolution in 1979, what was the media landscape like? And then how did it evolve or devolve? I mean, to the point where you were able to get sorry, my cat's bugging me. How are you? Hell, there isn't even a national satirical magazine in the United States. So, how was that happening in Iran?
In the first few months after the revolution, we had, I can't say absolute, but semi-absolute freedom. But then when the Ayatollahs got more established, they imposed limitations on the media by passing a media law. And then after the spark of the 1980 war, things got worse than what we expected. And nobody was allowed to draw the Ayatollahs in the cartoons because it would have been considered an insult to Islam because of the turban and the robe that resembles what the Prophet used to wear 1400 years ago.
It's pretty hard to do political cartoons in a theocracy if you can't draw that stuff, though.
That is true. And the other factor was after the end of the war, Rafsanjani needed to get to borrow tens of billions of dollars. So he had to prove that Iran is a democracy and people have some sort of freedom. So they actually gave permission to satirists and cartoonists to have their own magazine. And that magazine received subsidies from the government to get for publishing, for get paper. And And this is interesting, that it was criticizing the government, but in a very, very soft way. I was drawing caricatures of my professors after I had bought a collection of David Levine's caricatures in a bookstore that was on sale, I think, in late 1990. And I started studying his work and then drawing my professors using some sort of his technique and the way he viewed people. And I got a call from this magazine, Gulaga, that had just started publishing a few months ago. And it was I think it was the number one magazine in the country at that time. So that was a big deal for me. And although I was studying geology, but I was working as a cartoonist at that time. And even when I was continuing to study during my graduate studies, I became an editorial cartoonist for a newspaper. So I was a cartoonist and a geology student at once. I felt the heat a couple of times, but I was lucky to dodge them. I was about to get shot, I think was 1993, arrested in 1993, and then another time in 1994 because I had criticized a powerful guy who was the publisher of a newspaper that the Supreme Leader supported. I was told to just leave town for a while until everything settles down, but I didn't. I was lucky not to fall in a trap. So everything was, in a way, working out for me. And I knew there were limits, and I didn't try to cross them, but I tried to push the red lines in a way that I would have more freedom to criticize censorship, to criticize corruption. And in a way, I was lucky up to the moment I was arrested. So after that, I was in lots of trouble, and I felt the pressure and the heat. I can't say in the worst way possible because I'm still alive, but there were times that something could have happened to make my child fatherless.
And I mean, I guess it's funny hearing you say this, Nick. Neither Scott and I, like, sort of naturally would even ask you, like, well, why would you do that? Why would you take such a chance? Because we know, because we're cartoonists and we have the same personality. But for non-cartoonists, how would you explain your willingness to risk your life over, it's the way that you decide, the patterns of ink you decide to spill on a piece of paper?
I don't know how to compare it with the situation in the States, but in Iran, I felt that I needed to do as much as I could to create a better environment for my child and the children of the country, so they would have more freedom. And I only live once, so I didn't want to waste my time becoming a sheep like other sheep in the herd. I wanted to be the black sheep. So I hope this explains why some cartoonists are nuts.
Probably all, or
Yeah.
close to all. So how did you? I mean, when you fled Iran, was it a simple matter of just crossing your fingers, heading to Khomeini Airport, and hoping that they didn't stop you? How did it go? What happened?
No, it was at the Mehrabad Airport at that time, not the Khomeini Airport. But they held me for a couple of minutes, and my light blue jean shirt turned into dark blue because I was sweating for almost 2 hours until I boarded the plane. And before we crossed the border and we were in the Turkey airspace, I wasn't still sure that everything was happening as it was. So it was really scary, and I couldn't take my wife and daughter with me. So
You could not.
It took me 4 years to see them again. So that was it wasn't easy. And when I went to Canada, I was lucky to find a job at a dry cleaners. So I used to work for the press, but there I pressed shirts.
Why did you go to Canada and not the United States or somewhere else?
First of all, it was really hard to get a visa because we didn't have a U.S. embassy in Iran. Two, the Canadian Cartoonist Association invited me to give a speech there. Actually, they helped me get out of the country in a legal way. And the sad thing was that I felt that some people in the Canadian embassy didn't want me to go because they thought that, oh, if this guy goes there and doesn't come back, the officer who has issued the visa would be in trouble. So I didn't.
In bureaucracy, no is always the right answer.
Yeah. So I didn't mention anything. I told them I'm coming back because I have lots of work to do, but I think only a few people knew that I wasn't coming back. So when I was in Canada, I received another death threat, and it was October of 2003. And things
How was that delivered?
Serious.
How was that delivered?
It was online.
Wow.
And then I spoke to the lovely officers of RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, that means the Canadian FBI, and they actually helped a lot. So I'm thankful.
Were you fearful for the life of you had to have been for the life of your wife and daughter?
I was always fearful, but in a way, I don't want to say I'm religious, but I always cling to my faith as well.
So I guess, and now you're not a cartoonist anymore. Why is that? What happened?
I draw very few cartoons right now. One reason is because of health issues. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia in 2013, and fibromyalgia is not a very kind whatever you want to call it, a syndrome, disease, or anything. My hand sometimes doesn't run my airwaves, my brain waves, doesn't listen to them. Sometimes it becomes too stressful. The pain is overwhelming. And I decided to focus on water issues. That I also wrote lots of articles when I was in Iran, working as a cartoonist about Iran's water problems. And I had warned the government of the water crisis that was ahead of us. And I was summoned by President Khatami in 2001. The funny thing was that the first time that I met you guys was in Canada in 2001 at the Cartoonist Convention. And I had met Khatami at his office just 2 weeks before that. So some people told me that, oh, if you meet Khatami, then go to Canada and don't come back again. They think there's something cooking over there and it would be bad for your family. Although I got some calls to seek asylum when I was in Toronto, I did not, because my wife and daughter were back home and I wanted to go back. But as soon as I got home, I got summoned by the press court. And just 2 days after that, I was at the intensive care unit of a hospital because of a slight heart attack. So things were a little bit cartoony, funny.
Never a dull moment.
No.
So Nik, obviously, this. We're all following the news out of Iran and what the U.S. and Israel are doing. How do you feel? I mean, how do you feel about this? Do you feel like, what's your opinion about this? I guess the U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran.
It's complicated. First of all, I hate the Islamic regime. And the flag you're hanging behind you, Scott, is the Islamic regime's flag. We usually don't like it because of.
I'm sorry. I don't.
No. Just want to let you know how Iranians look at it. Because of the Allah on the flag. Before the revolution, we had the traditional green, white, and red flag with a lion and sunshine, and
yes.
Of course, that lion was a swordsman as well and had a sword in his hand. But just going back to the story, the Islamic regime actually, in a way, brought this war to Iran, but the fact is, I don't think this war would solve anything. As the attack on Fordow and Natanz didn't destroy Iran's stockpile of uranium in June, I don't think this war would actually solve the whole problem of Islamism and radical Islamists in the region. I see the Islamists in Iran as cockroaches. When you get rid of one cockroach and you feel successful, you're misled, because there are lots more beneath the stones in the sewer and everywhere else. We have to get rid of cockroachism instead of just one cockroach. And I see these people in the Islamic regime as the radical cockroaches that are ruining everything. To just get rid of one cockroach, 2 cockroaches, 100 cockroaches doesn't mean that you're getting rid of the dirt, the evil.
Well, so in other words, like the Trump administration's approach here, like as they did in Venezuela, has been to decapitate Ayatollah Khamenei and then other top leadership, including former President Ahmadinejad and so on.
He's alive.
Oh, he's alive. Okay, there was a report that he had died. But obviously the government remains in place. Is that what you mean, or do you mean just the ideology somehow has to be rooted out, and that's not something that can happen externally? Or
it's partially the ideology and also the way of life, the way of thinking, how they sustained themselves, how they have even spread the ideology and the militarism into the whole region. Why would Lebanon be part of Iran's plan? Why would Syria be somewhere that Iran would have invested billions and billions to save Bashar al-Assad for years? What does Yemen have to do with Iran? What's Iran's interest in Yemen? And there are so many other places that when you think, what the hell was Iran doing there? Of course, you may ask, what the hell are we doing in many other places?
Yeah, well, I mean, my take on that is as you know, the only major Shia majority country in the Middle East, it's like they were renting and buying allies as much as they could, right?
Yes, that is true. But Iran wanted to defend itself, and so it needed a shield in Syria. It didn't work out very well. It didn't work out in Yemen. It didn't work out in Lebanon. And Iran wasted the Islamic regime. I make this mistake, the Islamic regime, not Iran, because the Iranian nation mostly don't like this regime. But the Islamic regime wasted billions and billions and billions of dollars on the nuclear technology. And
do you think they were trying to develop nuclear weapons, or do you think that it was just nuclear power?
No, absolutely. I can say, because I heard this first time in 1997, when I was called by a former minister who had lost his job after the 1997 elections, and he wanted to publish a magazine and wanted me to do some designs for his new magazine. And I went to his office, and a couple of former ministers were there. So I was just like a fly on the wall and listening to what these guys were saying. And they were hopeful that Iran will have a bomb by 2005. So it would be, let's say, 8 years after that meeting I attended. So yes, I've heard that. And two, in 2002.
I mean, you could see why Iran. I mean, I've always felt like if I were running Iran, I would want a bomb. Look at what happened to Saddam Hussein. Look at what happened to Muammar Gaddafi. No bombs, not here anymore. Look at Kim Jong-un, bombs still here.
And one thing, Rafsanjani in the 1980s once said that we need an Islamic bomb. That was the funny thing. That means, would it be a circumcised bomb or a halal bomb? I don't know.
It can't be sausage shaped, no matter what.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, we're not privy to, but there doesn't seem to be a, what's next here. Do you see this action as being a net gain for the Iranian people, a net loss for the kind of like you said, the cockroaches they're going to come skittering out eventually, and I don't know that this changes a hell of a lot there, does it?
Look, what the bombs have done to Iran is destroying Iran's infrastructure, and I'm scared of the environmental situation even more than what many expect, because without this war, we had this water crisis and energy crisis. Now we will face food crisis.
How can Iran have an energy crisis? It's a major oil producing state.
Because of corruption, because it didn't go to renewable energies, because of wasting too much money on the nuclear plan, not for energy, but for the bomb, I should say. Because if we wanted to just produce nuclear energy, we didn't need to go through this much trouble. Because under the Shah, we were going to have a nuclear power plant in Bushehr on the shores of the Persian Gulf. And then we would have a few other nuclear plants, and they could have solved part of the energy problem and deficit. But now we have a big country of 92 million. We don't have enough water because of bad governance, bad management. And also, we shouldn't forget that Iran is an arid country. But
and vast, and I think Americans don't really
Yes.
understand how huge it is. Reader questions. Mr. Ali's asking, so sanctions have nothing to do with it?
They have, but who brought the sanctions to the country? Bad policies, occupying the U.S. Embassy in 1979, assassinating many political opponents and people all around the world, supporting and creating Hezbollah, doing the, was it in Riyadh or which part of Saudi Arabia that they exploded the barracks, I think in 1995, and also the supporting Hezbollah to kill people at the Jewish Community Center in Argentina. There's so many examples of what the Islamic regime has done to actually bring these sanctions and impose them on, having the world impose them on the people of Iran. And that's a sad thing.
Also, what about Matina's asking, she thought that the Ayatollah had a fatwa against the bomb.
That's a joke. We have something called in the Sharia teachings called taqiyya or taqiyya. That means you pretend that you're against something, but you're actually doing it. So it's something like a halal lie.
And so you're saying it's like during Ramadan when I was running around Afghanistan and I'd go to the public restrooms in the middle of the day and find all the empty water bottles from people who were cheating?
Of course, the empty water bottles in the toilets are for washing themselves. So that's another thing.
Oh, but people were definitely cheating too.
Well, they're cheating. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, you kind of have to. It's a desert country. It's too fucking hot and to go without water all day. So, what do you think about I find it bizarre that a lot of conservatives in America are so enamored with the Shah's son, his Reza Pahlavi. The polls I saw, to the extent that they're reliable in Iran, say that about 22% of Iranians are open to a constitutional monarchy, not necessarily with or without Pahlavi. But if we're liberating Iran, we're trying to liberate Iran. Is monarchy the way to go about it? Or I mean, what would be? Does that make sense? I mean, is there could Pahlavi be a credible post-war ruler of Iran? I mean, Hamid Karzai wasn't in Afghanistan.
I know Pahlavi very well. I have assisted him. Although I specified that I'm not a monarchist. We have something, I'm trying to translate this into English to be well understood in a way. It's hard. A monarchist is called Saltanat Talab, or a constitutionalist is called Mashrute Kha. Republican is called Jomhuri Kha. Jomhuri means republic. So Kha means something that you want or you go after. Mm-hmm. Once they told me that, okay, now that you're assisting Mr. Pahlavi, you're a monarchist. I said, no, I'm a selfish person. I'm neither a monarchist nor a Republican. I'm a selfish person, Khod Kha. So we have Mashrute Kha, Jomhuri Kha, Khod Kha. I'm sorry to confuse your audiences with these, but I said that no, I do whatever I believe is right. So I assisted him on environmental matters because I wanted to educate his audiences about the bad water situation in Iran. And somebody wrote some things that Mr. Pahlavi published in Huffington Post. And somebody brought some people to his office to talk about water issues for him. So because I wanted him to understand the situation of Iran's water crisis and what needs to be done if there's a political change. But at one point, I felt that his IQ was, I think, lower than, I don't know which politician to name.
So many to choose from.
Christy Nome.
It's really hard. It's really hard. But let's say from a politician called Dumbo. So he wasn't.
He doesn't seem so bright. I mean,
no.
I don't know. I'm sure you're familiar with the video of the German pranksters. Oh my god.
Oh my god. Look,
You know about this guy?
we want to bomb
No.
Iran from Germany, and then he says, "Oh, that's good because it won't be just the work of Israel and the U.S." That means he's pleased.
These
That's
German
what
pranksters, and like one of them dressed like Hitler. He's got the mustache. He's got the hair. He's missing the swastika armband. That's all.
And his name is Adolf. That's the funny.
And he's like, and it's like, oh yeah, no, that's good. Like, and then he uses the C word, crusade. He's like, let's join
Wait,
this. We need Germany
seriously?
to join this crusade. You know, I'm not Muslim, but I know that's not a good word in that part of the world.
And another thing, look, Al-Levy was in Munich a few weeks ago. There was a big rally there. And one of the speakers shouted, "One flag, one nation, one leader." That's what the Nazis used to say for Hitler.
Ein Reich, ein Volk, ein Führer.
Yes. And
Crazy.
And this was happening in Munich, of all cities.
I mean,
I'm
it seems
sorry.
to me like if we were that if the United States were serious about this is like the United States, you know, President Trump, it's 1944, it's D-Day, we invade France, and we say, hey, let's put the great grandson of Louis XVI back on the throne.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
no, but
bizarre.
I know it's not that bizarre, Ted. I'm going to say that. I mean, for instance, you're looking at Spain after Franco, and you know,
Juan
so they
Carlos.
had a monarchy that was a transitional, although that they're still around and apparently
That was
still.
bizarre, by the way. I remember it
was-
well.
It was, well, they picked somebody who kind of wasn't a king and said, "Hey, want to be king?" Who's going to say no to being a king?
It's good to be king, I've heard.
It is. I hear. Well, apparently it was great for him. You've heard he had many children and money from other sources, but I can see it
And
as
girlfriends, and he hunted a lot.
yes. Well, there's that. But I do see this as a potential transitional figure.
Why? Why not just if you're serious about liberating a country, why not liberate them and let them have elections and let them work it out the best they can, like without your thumb on the scale.
Right, because there's always a thumb somewhere. You know that. I mean,
Right, but there shouldn't be. I mean, speaking of which, after when in Afghanistan, when they had the Loya Jirga in 2002, again, the Americans were floating the idea of bringing the exiled Afghan king who from Rome, who was 85 years old. You know, I mean, who, by the way, would have been more popular than Karzai. But then they brought in Karzai, who, like most Afghans, had never heard of. And it was kind of like, who the fuck is this guy?
Well,
in a tribal society, that's not a good idea.
Well, let's ask Nick.
Our
Nick,
brothers had a restaurant, I think, in Virginia, so they were relevant.
I heard
it
the
ain't
food
good.
was good there.
was it good?
Yeah, no, it has a good reputation.
I've heard.
Well, let me ask Nick though. I just want to say, okay, now we are where we are. What do you think should happen next? And you know, give us a couple of steps moving forward in a happy scenario. I don't know that America or Israel is going to put boots on the ground. So you can't bomb anybody into. I mean, look at Japan in 1945. We literally obliterated Tokyo with firebombing, and they weren't ready to surrender until, you know, we really kind of. What would you like to see happen, and what's within the realm of the possible, do you think?
I wrote a piece with my good friend Ali Razanadar for Foreign Policy a couple of days ago. If you can find it, it's Khamenei is dead, who's in charge of Iran. So we talk about some solutions, some advice in a way to the Trump administration. But you have to look, the thing is, we don't know who's advising the Trump administration on attacking Iran. And I guess they're just following the lead of Israel. And there's this...
It does seem like that, yeah.
And there's this very well-known Israeli analyst who I think was part of the military, Danny Cernowitz, that says that, okay, the whole thing is to just weaken Iran, but without an end game. if they want to, there are people in Israel who want parts of Iran to separate from other parts.
Yes. I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to, Nick. Just today, a couple hours ago, President Trump issued a statement to the effect that any groups that rise up against either the Iranian or the Iraqi government would receive U.S. air cover. Now, assuming that you could believe that promise, considering, I have some Cuban exiles from the Bay of Pigs who could tell you that they're still waiting for that air cover to show up from 1961. But he offered that. And, John Kiriakou, my co-host on my other podcast, he said that is a message to the Kurds. You can rise up. We will let you have an independent Kurdistan in Iran, and maybe the Baluchis as well.
Yeah, the only Baluchi that I think may be ignorant to the facts would be Monica Bellucci. But look, the fact is, many people don't understand the complexities of Iran. Doesn't understand the potential,
including our leadership who's invading it.
I think bad advice is seen there, and honestly, I think there are ways to keep things in a better way. I would say if Witkoff and Jared were continuing the talks, of course, I should say Iranians, the Islamic regimes, negotiators are the best at wasting time, and that's how they have kept this regime.
Do you think that's intentional? Do you think they're dragging their ass, or is that cultural, or is it both?
Both, and also because they were listening to what Ayatollah Khamenei was saying, because Ayatollah Khamenei was the guy dictating the whole policy, and now he's dead. Depending on who becomes the next leader, would it be his son Mujtaba or another cleric? That's something else. But there is a window of opportunity right now before we have another supreme leader, another supreme dictator, where there are some smart guys running I don't want to say good smart guys, they're evil, like Larijani or Ghalibaf. They're evil, but they're not like a supreme leader that wants to please all the religious followers as well. So what I'm thinking now is that if I've also heard this from an insider, that there have been talks of a conversation between Iran's intelligence community and the US's intelligence community to find a solution for this problem. If that happens, possibly we would see less and less bombs exploding in Tehran, and I don't want to see more schoolgirls hit by bombs. What happened in Minab was a disaster. 160 or 61 students were murdered in broad daylight, and that's a disaster. Nobody would even applaud this as, let's say, a casualty of war. People knew that there was a school over there, but who gave the coordination to?
Well, the current thinking is that they were using outdated, map information, and that the school used to be part of a complex. It's government property. Part of it was split off to become a school. The other parts, the military base in the U.S., believed it was all a military base still. But my question is, okay, we have real-time drone surveillance and satellite technology now. I mean, it seems to me like it's hard to understand how or why the U.S. targeters would not have observed parents dropping their girls off at school for days, right? Teachers arriving, kids leaving. I mean, there were hundreds of kids there. I mean, it's a school. Anybody who's watching would be able to tell that.
My understanding is this was a bomb sent from Israel. Is that correct?
No, it turns
wasn't
out
American?
it was a U.S. bomb.
Oh, that's
Based on the location of where it happened, it had the Israelis weren't operating in that sector.
Look, if the GPS on your car, I have our cars from 2016. If we just rely on the GPS on our car, so many changes have been made on the speed limits and everything through the years. So we use what we have on the iPhone, the map, or on Google GPS or Waze. So I think the bombs were outdated in a way. This is my cartooning mind speaking. But look, it's a disaster. When you don't have the correct information, how do you actually target those places?
Well, you can't know what's going on. I mean, look, this was, when I was covering the Afghanistan invasion, it frustrated the shit out of me. There was one ridiculous night when night after night, the area that the journalists and I were staying in, which was occupied by the Northern Alliance, kept getting bombed by the US. And we found ourselves on a satellite phone calling the Pentagon and saying, like, is there anyone in charge of, the war that we can talk to and say, and finally they were like, well, all the war people have gone home for the night. And like, well, their fucking planes are bombing the shit out of us here. Could you tell them to stop? I can take a message. It was because there was no one on the ground. That's the problem with an air war, right? You just don't know you can't really know everything that's going on.
Look, there are many problems that we don't talk about them here in the U.S. I was at the Islam U.S. forum that was held in Doha in 2012. It's a conference that the Qatari Foreign Ministry and Brookings actually sponsor. And over there, I met this guy. I forgot his last name. Amrullah Saleh, I think. He was the top intelligence officer of Afghanistan. And when people were talking about how bin Laden was hunted, and they had just discovered his location in Abbottabad in late 2011 or early 2012, he said, what? We told Americans in 2007 or 2008 where he was hiding. And I asked this guy who was a former intelligence officer working for Brookings at that time, I said, do you think he's right? He said, I think he's right.
So I think he's right too. Yeah. Before the invasion of Afghanistan, the former Soviet envoy to Kabul during the Soviet war in Afghanistan repeatedly tried to get the State Department or the Defense Department to take meetings so that he could share some of the stuff that the Soviets had learned, and no one would give him a meeting.
Well, I wanted to jump in and ask Nik this question. I was making
because what would Russia know about Afghanistan?
Oh, nothing. Well, they know how to leave. I have built a list of questions to ask Nik here. And one was, what don't Americans know about Iran and should? And I peg this to when we invaded Iraq. We had no idea. Americans, because we're not collectively that smart, we had no idea that there was any difference between Shia and other forms of Islam. Americans were shocked. They said, wait, what? It's not all the same thing. It strikes me that this administration and this country is going into this with the same blinders on. Nik, what don't we know about Iran going into this thing that we should?
First of all, pardon me. It's Great Iran. Question. So I ran from Iran.
Okay, Iran.
Or like a flock of Iran is a flock of seagulls song. Iran's so far away.
So I ran in 2003 from Iran. So that's one thing.
Okay, Iran. My apologies again.
No.
I put up the wrong flag. I
tried to teach Scott that, but he didn't listen.
No, it's okay.
He wouldn't take a meeting with me.
Tens of years. So I think it was Christian Imampur, because she's Iranian actually, was talking to someone about this. I found it really, really amusing. But going back to what you said, look, Iran and the U.S. became in a way, really good friends after World War II. And the monarchy owed its place to the Eisenhower administration that got rid of Mossadegh, the prime minister, the liberal prime minister we had in 1953 through a coup. Of course, some don't want to say it's a coup, but it's a coup. When it sounds like a coup and it quacks like a coup, it's a coup. So that's another thing. And that actually, the creation of Iran's Savak, that was the security police that built the Evin prison with the help of Israelis in the late 1960s and early 1970s. The creation was, I think, with the help of the Americans to keep Iran away from communism. What I've been doing the last few years on water issues was studying how the hell Iran's sustainable water management turned into a disaster. It was after 1949 when the Shah of Iran went to Vegas and saw the Hoover Dam and thought, oh, I want my own Hoover Dam.
Everyone gets a dam.
Yeah, so he built his dams after visiting the Hoover Dam. And the American way of water management and development actually started at that time. And
we're having our own problems in the Colorado River anyway.
Exactly. And I visit the Colorado River Basin and also California and other parts in the Southwest for my own research at least twice a year to see what's happening. Because we actually copied and pasted the way of water management that was happening in the US. But the funny thing is that if you go to New Mexico, there you find an irrigation system called acequia. Acequia comes from Spain. And the Spanish got it from the Muslims, and the Muslims got it from Iranians. Interesting. So Iran has its own influence in parts of New Mexico and Colorado, but it got its new way of water management and development from the 1950s. And then with the Truman Point 4 program or plan, Iranians got used to digging wells, and we dug too many wells, and through time we lost most of our groundwater resources.
So you guys drained the aquifer.
Exactly.
And there's no I've always thought,
do you have are sinkholes a problem? Sorry, Scott.
No, sinkholes are created in some areas because of too much depletion, but it's land subsides usually when you have we don't have aquifer recharge and you have too much groundwater depletion. Like in California, in the area called named Corcoran in the Central Valley, I think you have 8 to 11 inches of subsidence each year, and then you're having subsidence in Arizona as well. And when subsidence happens, you lose the opportunity, the volume to store groundwater in the future. And that's a sort of, in a way, desertification. And the sad story in that part of California is that more than 100 years ago, you had a lake in that area, Lake Tulare, that it disappeared. And then they started farming and they depleted the aquifers to plant almonds, other things. Mm-hmm. And now in the near future, you'll have nothing over there where once was a lake.
That's astounding. I've always thought on water issues, I'm kind of a geek on those issues myself, just because they're fascinating. Water is, this may come as a surprise to you both, but it's important. to
I drink
human
it
beings.
almost every day.
I do, and I'm made up of a lot of it. Anyway, but desalinization is another issue that I've always thought California had an opportunity, especially because Southern California is as arid as Iran, and to at least use it as a supplement for water and water usage. Southern California uses a reservoir system like you just described in Iran. Why hasn't Iran actually pursued desalinization? I mean, it's not like there's not a lot of, it has.
It has. And desalinization in the Persian Gulf is destroying the ecosystems over there.
Yeah, that's
why?
horrible.
Because of the hot brine. Look,
so yeah, it's the byproduct. It's the byproduct of desalinization, right?
Yes.
You're removing the salt. Well, where does the salt go, right? So they dump it back into the ocean.
I also want to jump in that Hot Brine sounds like a punk band that Ted Rawl was in college.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but that right. I mean, am I wrong, Nick? That's
you're right. I've interviewed many people because I traveled to Israel to study their water technology and water governance twice, and the head of DSAL, the former head of DSAL of Israel, was talking about the technology, but he told me one thing. He said it should be your last and only last resort to use desalinization.
Really?
Yes, because if you can actually manage the floods to recharge the aquifers or to save water or change the demand for water consumption, and you save water for the future, you don't need desalinization. The fact is, chemically, it changes the equilibrium of the water that you're actually pulling water to your plant, your desal plant. The other thing is the hot brine kills planktons, and planktons actually produce oxygen. And we don't think about it.
We need that too.
And
just for the kids
I
at
use
home.
it every day, almost.
So coral reefs are dying in the Persian Gulf. A lot of fish have escaped or are getting smaller and smaller in the Persian Gulf. And let's understand, Persian Gulf is a very small body of water. It was actually a very, I don't want to say a very deep, no, it was just a deep valley that water from the Sea of Oman actually entered, I think, 15,000 years ago and created this body of water. It's part of the Arabian Plate. It's just a shallow part of that. And I think the median depth is something around 100 feet.
Oh, that's it. Wow.
So that's it. So you have the Sea of Oman, that's a very deep sea. And then you have the Persian Gulf, that's actually part of the continent, the continental plate, Arabian continental plate. So this small body of water is vulnerable. And Iran, Saudi Arabia, Emirates, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, and Iraq are using desalinization to get fresh water, but they dump the hot brine and the chemicals with it into this body of water. And it takes a long time for this amount of water to circulate and then get out of the sea and get into the Sea of Oman after through the Strait of Hormuz. So environmentally speaking, it's not a good idea.
So Nick, what I mean, if you were the Shah of Iranian water, what would you like? If you could just, it's all up to you. The government's going to do what you want. You have an unlimited budget. What's the solution to the Iranian water crisis?
First of all, you don't have one solution that fits all. You have different regions in the country. So in each region, in each basin, you have to find out what are the best solutions that people have followed for thousands of years. One. Two, you have to use the floods and control the floods because we have lots of flash floods. And then recharge the aquifers using those floods by controlling the flow. The other thing is to reduce the demand we have over there for water consumption. Our agriculture is the killer of our water resources. And this actually started because we had rain-fed farms all around the country. After Truman's Point 4 plan, things changed. So that's another thing. We have to go back to the basis. Or as you hear in, I'm not sure if it's really connected or not, but let's go to the mattresses as well and be a little bit harsh on the water managers in the country. We have a water mafia. I'm not sure if you heard Trump's speech in Riyadh in May. When he was talking about Iran, he said, oh, Iran has the water mafia. And guess who started the conversation about water mafia? Me.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes. And when Trump talked about the water mafia, my friends in Iran actually blamed me for writing his speech. And I said, look, I had nothing to do with it. And over here, some people were angry and even censored his parts, the part of the speech talking about water mafia. Iran International TV, that's based in London and Washington, didn't translate on its live feed the part about water mafia. That's interesting.
That is super interesting for sure.
So now the water mafia is, if you're looking into the web, there's an article I wrote in 2021 for the Middle East Institute about IRGC and the water mafia. And then if you look at water mafia and then search with Nik Kowsar, you'll find lots of stuff. The thing is, the water mafia is a body, an unofficial body that makes decisions on how to go forward with water management through building dams, interbasin water transfers. And the water mafia is connected to the IRGC or Revolutionary Guards. Now, what does the water mafia have to do with the nuclear plan? One, you need water to cool down your centrifuges. Mm-hmm. And you have some of your centrifuges in the driest parts of the country. So you need to transfer water to those centrifuges. Iran purchased lots of these tunnel bearing machines, TBMs.
So that's like the Elon Musk thing. He has the boring company, right?
Yeah. So what Iran did, what the Islamic regime did, was bought lots of those machines, and they dug lots of tunnels all around the country. So once I was telling this gentleman from one of the think tanks in Washington that I cannot name, that if you want to find where Iran hides its bombs or rockets or nuclear stuff, find out where they actually dug tunnels and threw out the dirt through all these years. Get a time lapse from all your satellite photos from 2000 up to now, and you'll find those spots. So the Islamic regime water complex, IRGC, and the nuclear part of the regime are all connected. But that's hard to fathom.
Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time left. So before we wrap, Nik, and thank you, by the way, for
thank you very much.
A great chat. You have to come back, whether you like it or not.
No, I love to, and I love to talk to John Kiriakou. I think he's in Virginia as well.
He is. Yeah, you guys are probably not too far from each other. I'll put you guys in touch after the show.
He knows where you are.
Yeah. No, but his map data is 20 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. So Nik, in terms of this war, can you tell me your best case scenario, your worst fears, and what you most likely think is going to happen?
I think the worst case scenario is if they bomb somewhere when Iran is hiding lots of ammunition, and environmentally speaking, we'll have a water problem in the next few months, and also food problems. So when we talk about the nexus of food, water, and energy, now we'll have a a sad situation in the near few months. So I'm really worried for the people in different parts of the country, and I'm very angry about the part, let's say, the Pahlavi movement, if you will, part of the movement that wants to take advantage of this war. So some naive individual who's, I think, just playing based on what his handlers want to gain power. Of course, he would not reach anything himself, but his handlers will, I believe, want to taught the US and Israel to do their dirty work. And they don't care for humanity at all, in my belief. They may pretend to, but I don't believe a word they say. They don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in human rights. This is my way of thinking. So I think we'll see a disaster in the next few months if this path would continue as it is right now. And I hope some smart and thoughtful people in the administration would think twice, not to follow the path of somebody next to the Mediterranean who wants to just turn Iran into a disorganized nation. Because some believe that if by causing separation between different parts of the country and to create different nations out of one nation, Iran wouldn't be powerful enough to attack Israel in the future. I think that's not the case. Iranians don't hate Israel. Most Iranians don't hate Israel. We have more than 300,000 Persian-speaking people in Israel.
Okay, I think we'll leave that there. Nik Kowsar, thank you so much for joining us. It's so great to see you. Nik is an award-winning Iranian Canadian cartoonist, journalist.
Of course, I'm American right now as well. So
Iranian American and Canadian cartoonist, journalist, and water issues analyst, born in Tehran in 1969. Studied geology at the University of Tehran before launching his cartooning career in '91 in the satirical magazine Gol Agha. Does the magazine still exist?
No.
He contributed to numerous Iranian newspapers like Hamshari and others, often facing censorship and prosecution for his sharp satire. He was imprisoned in the year 2000 for a cartoon depicting a crocodile that critics linked to a hardline cleric. Death threats forced him to flee in 2003. He went to Canada, now in DC, and he won the Cartoonist Rights International Award for Courage in Editorial Cartooning in 2001. Thanks so much for joining us, Nik. Scott, I'm going to let you off the hook today, and no singing at the end.
And I'll get a new flag, I promise.
There's it's always right. There's so many different versions of every country. Always has. Nik, thank you so much.
Iran.
Yeah, not Iran.
Okay, I'm sorry. I live in the American South. That's how we say things.
Yeah, you were born in California.
I hear you.
No excuse.
Well, I was born in California.
It was great seeing you guys.
Likewise.
Thanks for you too, Nik. It was fun.